This dad wasn't trying to be a villain, but when a daycare teacher kept secretly showing his son religious cartoons and then lied to his face about it, he went full detective mode. He barged past the receptionist, caught her red-handed, and yes, got her fired over VeggieTales. Was he protecting his son, or did he take it way too far? And that's just the first story, because today we've got a roommate from hell living rent-free who demands the owners switch bedrooms because she can hear too much, plus a mom who tricked her daughter into opening her banking app just to demand half her life savings. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to AITA Chronicles, where we break down the wildest Reddit AITA stories every single day. If you love drama, tough moral dilemmas, and some seriously messy situations, you're in the right place. Our goal: 10K subscribers, and every single one of you watching helps us get there. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's jump right into today's chaos. Am I the asshole for getting a woman fired over VeggieTales? All right, folks, buckle up because this is quite possibly the most bizarre hill someone has chosen to die on. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it. We're about to dive into a story about cartoon vegetables, workplace insubordination, and what happens when someone just cannot take no for an answer. And when I say cannot, I mean this teacher was more dedicated to showing VeggieTales than some people are to their own marriages. So, our writer and his wife have their son in daycare. He says it's unfortunate and unavoidable, which, okay, bit dramatic, but I get it. Daycare is expensive as hell, and you're trusting strangers with your kids, so fair enough. A few months ago, our writer picks up his son and asks about his day, as parents do. The kid mentions watching a show with cartoon vegetables. Our writer thinks. And if you grew up anywhere near American pop culture in the last 30 years, you know what cartoon vegetables means. VeggieTales, the show where Larry the cucumber and Bob the tomato teach kids about Jesus through the power of vegetables that somehow talk despite having no mouths. It's wild. So the next day, our writer drops his son off and asks the teacher directly, "Did they watch VeggieTales?" And here's where things get interesting. Because instead of just saying yes or no like a normal human being, the teacher goes with option C, deflection and vague corporate speak. She says they didn't show the kids anything inappropriate. I'm sorry, what? That's not what he asked. He didn't ask if you showed them rated R movies or true crime documentaries. He asked a yes or no question. Did you watch VeggieTales? The fact that she couldn't give a straight answer is already sketchy as hell. Our writer asks again, but did they watch VeggieTales? She still won't give a straight answer and just repeats that nothing inappropriate was shown. At this point, I'd be getting suspicious too, because if you're not doing anything wrong, why are you being so weird about it? So our writer says clearly, I don't want him to watch VeggieTales. Teacher says he won't be allowed to watch anything inappropriate. Again, with the inappropriate thing. Ma'am, we're talking about talking vegetables, not Breaking Bad. Just say yes or no. That day, our writer gets home and asks his son, did you watch VeggieTales? And wouldn't you know it? Yes, he did. So our writer emails the administration. They assure him that nope, no VeggieTales. It's not even on the approved media list, has never been shown, will never be shown. Case closed, right? Wrong. Next week, our writer asks his son again, did you watch VeggieTales? Yep. Our writer reaches out to the administration again and gets told that maybe his son is confused. Oh, so now we're gaslighting a literal child? A kid who probably can't even spell confused is apparently making up elaborate stories about cartoon vegetables? Make it make sense. Kids aren't exactly known for their complex fictional narratives about unauthorized media consumption. If he says he watched Singing Tomatoes, he watched Singing Tomatoes. So our writer decides to go full detective mode. He asks his boss if he can leave work early, which, props to him for actually getting permission instead of just bouncing, walks past the receptionist who told him to stop, but he just keeps walking. Iconic energy, honestly. Into the main room, and boom, there it is. VeggieTales, playing right there on the screen. He takes a picture like he's gathering evidence for court. The administration gives him a warning for barging in, which is fair, I guess, but they promise the VeggieTales situation will be solved. The teacher has to take all her tapes home and isn't allowed to bring in tapes ever again. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Don't bring your religious propaganda vegetables to work anymore. Simple. Next week, did you watch VeggieTales? No, Dad. Great. Finally, problem solved. Following week, did you watch VeggieTales? Yep, I cannot. This teacher had one job. Actually, she had many jobs, but one of them was definitely don't show the banned vegetables. And she could not do it. She was told by parents, told by administration, had her tapes physically removed from the premises, and still found a way to sneak those vegetables back in. The dedication is honestly impressive in the most infuriating way possible. So our writer emails again, and this is where he forms what I'm now calling the Anti-VeggieTales Coalition, which is possibly the funniest thing I've heard all week. Um, he starts getting other parents involved. And here's the best part. Even some of the Christian parents were annoyed. One Christian mom watches VeggieTales at home with her daughter and specifically said she didn't want it watched at daycare because if her daughter has questions, she wants to be the one asked, not the teacher. That's actually a really solid point. Even parents who are cool with the content don't necessarily want some random teacher being their kid's religious educator. That's a parent's job, not someone who's just trying to get through nap time. The resolution? Teacher got fired. And now people are mad at our writer. There's a whole backlash. People feel bad. They feel guilty. It's all his fault. He pressured them into making it a big deal. They're just animated vegetables. Even his wife said he pulled a me and went on the warpath. Okay, let's break this down because there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, let's talk about VeggieTales itself. For anyone who doesn't know, VeggieTales is a Christian children's show that retells Bible stories using animated vegetables. It's been around since the 90s and has a pretty big following. Some episodes are retellings of actual Bible stories, Daniel and the lion's den, Jonah and the whale, that sort of thing. Others are just moral lessons with vague religious undertones. There's a whole series of silly songs with Larry that are just chaotic vegetable nonsense and honestly pretty catchy. Now, is VeggieTales the worst thing in the world? No. Is it overtly preachy and trying to convert kids? Depends on the episode. Some are pretty gentle, be a good person messages. Others are very explicitly, here's what the Bible says. But regardless of how you feel about the content, it is religious programming. That's not up for debate. It was created specifically to teach Christian values to children. That's its whole purpose. And here's the thing. Even if you're totally fine with your kids watching VeggieTales at home, that doesn't mean you want it shown at a secular daycare. Because when a teacher shows religious content in a non-religious educational setting, it sends a message to kids that this is something they're supposed to learn. It's got the weight of authority behind it. It's different from a parent choosing to show it at home. Some commenters pointed out that they're not religious, but watched VeggieTales as kids and turned out fine. Cool. That's great for you. But that's not the point. The point is that parents should get to decide what religious content their kids are exposed to, especially when those kids are really young and can't really distinguish between this is one belief system among many and this is the truth that my teacher is teaching me. Commenter, you charming entrance 345 absolutely nailed it. They said your child wasn't watching VeggieTales, but the teacher showed it numerous times after you were told it wasn't being shown. If they would lie about that, what else are they lying about? Exactly. This isn't actually about VeggieTales. This is about trust. This is about a teacher who was explicitly told not to do something, lied about doing it, got caught, promised to stop, and then did it again. Multiple times. That's a pattern of behavior that shows a complete disregard for parents' wishes and workplace policies. And commenter you/smelling like a fairy had me die-eyeing with this response. She clearly wasn't watching it with them, or she'd know lying is bad. Bob and Larry would be very disappointed in her. The irony. You're out here trying to teach kids Christian values through cartoon vegetables, but you can't even follow the most basic commandment about not bearing false witness. Make it make sense. One of the core lessons in like half the VeggieTales episodes is about being honest and telling the truth. And this teacher is out here lying to parents' faces repeatedly. If that's not peak hypocrisy, I don't know what is. The comment section absolutely went off about VeggieTales, and honestly, it's kind of beautiful. You've got people sharing their favorite songs, people debating the theological accuracy of various episodes, people reminiscing about which episodes traumatized them as kids. Commenter you slash not your sexy nurse started singing, "Oh, where's my hairbrush?" And multiple people joined in with the full lyrics. For context, that's from an episode where Larry the Cucumber is looking for his hairbrush, even though he doesn't have any hair. And it's honestly a bop. I haven't thought about that song in years, and now it's stuck in my head. So thanks for that, Internet. Someone else mentioned the Rumor Weed episode that gave them nightmares as a kid, which honestly tracks because that thing was kind of creepy. Another person talked about how the episode with the chocolate bunny idol is actually a retelling of the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, which includes a song with the lyric, "I don't love my mama or my daddy, just the bunny." Try explaining that to a confused 4-year-old in a secular daycare without breaking out your Bible. Good luck. But here's what really gets me about this whole situation: the teacher's absolute refusal to stop. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate, repeated insubordination. Let's count the incidents. 1. Teacher shows VeggieTales. 2. Parent asks about it. Teacher dodges the question. 3. Parent explicitly says don't show it. Teacher says nothing inappropriate will be shown, but doesn't say she'll stop. 4. Teacher continues showing VeggieTales. 5. Parent emails administration. 6. Administration says it's not allowed and has never been shown. Lie. 7. Teacher still shows VeggieTales. 8. Administration suggests it is confused. Gaslighting. 9. Parent literally catches them in the act with photographic evidence. 10. Teacher is told to remove all tapes, is banned from bringing in tapes. 11. Teacher still finds a way to show VeggieTales again. That's not someone who made a mistake. That's someone who fundamentally believes that their right to evangelize children is more important than parents' rights, workplace rules, or basic honesty. That's someone who thinks they know better than everyone else, and the rules don't apply to them. Commenter you slash Hypatiardux said, teacher clearly wanted to be a martyr. And honestly, that tracks. There's a whole persecution complex in certain branches of Christianity where being told no, you can't force your religion on other people's children is seen as religious oppression. This teacher probably went home every night thinking she was being so brave and righteous by defying the evil secular administration and spreading the good word through vegetables. And commenter you slash one pink squirrel one scotch had the best response. I think in the veggie world it's called a tomartyr. I screamed. That's perfect. She wanted to be a tomartyr for the cause of unauthorized vegetable-based religious education. Now let's talk about the other parents who are mad at our writer. The ones who feel bad and think the teacher getting fired was too harsh. To them I say, what exactly did you want to happen here? The teacher was told multiple times by multiple people in positions of authority to stop doing something. She lied repeatedly. She violated workplace policy. She showed religious content in a secular environment against parents' explicit wishes. She did all of this knowingly and deliberately. What consequence would have been appropriate in your minds? A stern talking to that she would have ignored, just like she ignored all the previous ones. Also, let's be real. A lot of these parents probably only care because now they have to deal with the inconvenience of the daycare, potentially being short-staffed or having to adjust to a new teacher. They don't actually care about the principle of the thing. They just don't want their routines disrupted. And instead of being mad at the teacher who created this whole mess, they're mad at the parent who had the audacity to expect the rules to be followed. Commenter you slash no forever 2274 summed it up perfectly. The fact that the teacher repeatedly lied to your face about what they're showing your kid is enough reason to get fired. Don't lie to the parents. NTA. It really is that simple. This is a profession based on trust. You're trusting these people with your children. If they'll lie about something as relatively minor as what TV show they're watching, what else will they lie about? Did your kid get hurt? Oh no, nothing happened today. Did they eat? Oh yes, they ate all their lunch. Are they following proper safety protocols? Of course we are. Once that trust is broken, it's broken. You can't work in childcare if parents can't trust you. Several commenters also pointed out the major red flag of the receptionist trying to stop our writer from going into the classroom. What? Most daycares have open door policies specifically so parents can drop in and see what's happening. The fact that they wanted him to wait and essentially give them time to turn off the TV is sketchy as hell and suggests the administration might have been in on it or at least knew it was happening and were covering for the teacher. Commenter u// Orinda Sarnia said, if the daycare bosses aren't circulating around the rooms enough to know that VeggieTales is routinely being shown in class, then the program director should have been fired too. Thank you. Either the administration knew and was lying, or they didn't know, which means they have no idea what's actually happening in their own facility. Neither of those options is acceptable for a place that's supposed to be caring for children. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Would people be defending this teacher if she'd been showing Islamic cartoons, or Buddhist meditation videos, or content about witchcraft and paganism? I think we all know the answer. There would be absolute outrage. Parents would be pulling their kids immediately. The teacher would be fired before lunch. But because it's Christianity, specifically the dominant brand of Christianity in American culture, people are like, oh, it's just harmless vegetables. Why are you making such a big deal? So that's privilege talking. That's people being so used to Christianity being everywhere that they literally can't see it as the religious indoctrination that it is. Commenter u/fearless score salty score 395 nailed it. Imagine the outrage if a Muslim teacher was showing kids Muslim cartoons. Same reaction should be had with Christianity. Exactly. Either religious content in secular childcare is okay or it's not. You don't get to have it both ways just because one religion is more culturally dominant. And can we talk about how even Christian parents were annoyed about this? Commenter you ouch Charlie 25 said, devout Christian here. While I do enjoy VeggieTales and allow my kids to watch it, I wholeheartedly support OP. Parents should have every right to have a say in what is and is not taught by a school their kids are attending. That's the thing. This isn't about whether VeggieTales is good or bad. It's about boundaries and consent. Even parents who are actively raising their kids in the Christian faith don't necessarily want a random teacher making decisions about their kids' religious education. That's a parental right, not a teacher's right. The fact that one Christian parent specifically said she watches it with her daughter at home, but doesn't want it at daycare because she wants her daughter to ask her questions instead of the teacher, shows exactly what the issue is. Religious education, even gentle, vegetable-based religious education, raises questions. Kids are going to ask about God, about heaven, about prayer, about sin. Do you really want some daycare teacher you barely know shaping your kids' understanding of those concepts? And here's another thing. VeggieTales isn't even universally accepted across all Christian denominations. Commenter you definitely not aliens mentioned that their Catholic ex-brother-in-law didn't like VeggieTales. Another commenter talked about how their preacher uncle wouldn't let his grandkids watch certain episodes because he had issues with the doctrine. So it's not even just a question of Christian or not Christian, it's specifically evangelical Protestant Christianity with a particular theological bent. For Catholics, for Orthodox Christians, for mainline Protestants, for any number of other Christian traditions, VeggieTales might not align with what they're teaching their kids. So this teacher wasn't just pushing Christianity in general, she was pushing her specific version of Christianity. The audacity. Let's also talk about what this teaches kids. When a teacher openly defies rules, lies to parents, and faces no consequences, at least initially, what message does that send? It tells kids that rules don't matter if you think you're right. It tells them that lying is okay if it's for a good cause. It normalizes authority figures being dishonest. Those are terrible lessons for young children who are still learning about how the world works. Commenter u/odd resource 325 said, anyone who gives you grief, just explain that they are teaching our kids to lie and not follow rules. This isn't a VeggieTales issue. This is a core belief issue. Yes, the content of the show is almost beside the point. The behavior is the issue. If a teacher can't follow basic workplace rules and be honest with parents about something this simple, they shouldn't be teaching children. Period. Now, our writer's wife thinks he should have told his son about the legal stuff privately, instead of making it a big confrontation. And okay, I can see where she's coming from. She probably just wants to avoid conflict and keep things smooth. But here's the thing, private conversations weren't working. Our writer tried the polite route multiple times. He asked nicely, he emailed, he followed proper channels, and the teacher kept lying. At a certain point, you have to escalate. You have to make it clear that this is a serious issue that won't be ignored or swept under the rug. If he'd handled it privately, the administration would have kept making excuses and the teacher would have kept showing her veggie propaganda. The only thing that worked was catching them red-handed and making it impossible to deny. Several commenters pointed out that the teacher didn't get fired for showing VeggieTales once. She got fired for a pattern of behavior, showing unapproved content, lying to parents repeatedly, lying to administration, violating direct orders from supervisors, bringing banned materials back after being told not to, continuing the behavior even after being caught. That's a whole resume of reasons to fire someone. Any one of those things might warrant a serious warning. All of them together? Yeah, you gotta go. Commenter you throwaway 197576 at 4 said, "You didn't get her fired. Her own actions did. Thank you." Our writer didn't march in there demanding someone be fired. He just asked for the rules to be followed. The administration made the decision to terminate her employment based on her behavior, not his complaints. If she'd stopped after the first warning, she'd still have her job. If she'd stopped after the second warning, she'd still have her job. She had so many chances to course correct and chose not to take any of them. That's on her, not on the parents who expected basic honor following, rule following from someone caring for their children. And can we talk about how easy it would have been for her to just not do this? There are approximately 8 billion children's shows that aren't religiously themed. Sesame Street, Daniel Tiger, Bluey, Octonauts, Super Y, Word World, literally anything from PBS Kids. The world is full of age-appropriate, educational, entertaining content for young children that doesn't involve proselytizing. Commenter, you Demon Faye, said, "There is so fucking much Sesame Street. Just show them Big Bird. Indoctrinate them that cookies are delicious." Exactly. If you're going to indoctrinate kids, at least do it with universally accepted truths like cookies are delicious and sharing is good. The fact that she was so committed to VeggieTales specifically, to the point of losing her job over it, tells you this was never about just entertaining the kids or teaching them values. This was about spreading her religion to a captive audience of other people's children. That's not education. That's evangelism. And it has no place in a secular daycare. I also want to address the people who are like, but VeggieTales is so wholesome and harmless. First of all, whether it's wholesome or not is irrelevant. Parents get to decide what media their kids consume, full stop. But second, let's not pretend there aren't some wild things in VeggieTales if you actually pay attention. Commenter u//odd season -8943 quoted a line from one of the songs. The bunny, oh, I love the bunny. I don't love my mama or my daddy, just the bunny. And then said, now explain that line to a kid in daycare without breaking out your Bible, right? That line is from an episode about idolatry. It's about the biblical story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refusing to bow to a golden idol. Try explaining the concept of idolatry, false gods being thrown into a fiery furnace for your religious beliefs, and miraculous divine intervention to a 4-year-old whose parents don't even believe in God. Good luck with that conversation. And that's just one example. There are episodes about faith, prayer, sin, redemption, God's will, angels. These are heavy theological concepts that require context and explanation. You can't just plop kids in front of that content and expect them to understand it without guidance. And if you're providing that guidance in a daycare setting, you're doing religious education, whether you want to call it that or not. Multiple commenters also brought up the very valid point that even if the content itself isn't harmful, the secrecy and lying around it creates a really troubling dynamic. When adults teach kids to hide things from their parents, when they create a culture of what happens here stays here, when they model dishonesty and rule breaking, they're creating the exact conditions that allow actual abuse to flourish. Commenter U Formal Dirt 3434 said, Dishonesty means they are hiding something they are exposing to kids or giving something to them and hiding it. The severity of each situation varies wildly. Could be a lazy caretaker, could be a podo. But this is the same toolkit used by abusers. That might sound extreme, but it's true. Abusers rely on secrecy, on convincing kids not to tell their parents things, on establishing that the adult's authority supersedes parental authority. This teacher might not be an abuser, but she's using the same tactics. She's teaching kids that it's okay for adults to lie to their parents. She's teaching them that some things should be kept secret from mom and dad. Those are dangerous lessons. Now let's talk about our writer himself and whether he actually went on the warpath, as his wife suggested. Did he, though? Let's review what he actually did. 1. Asked the teacher a question. 2. Stated his preference. 3. Emailed administration when the issue wasn't resolved. 4. Followed up when the problem continued. 5. Verified that the problem was actually resolved by checking in person. 6. Followed up again when it wasn't resolved. 7. Got other parents involved when it became clear this was a systemic issue. That's not going on the warpath. That's being a persistent advocate for your child. There's a difference between being unreasonable and being unwilling to be brushed off or lied to. If he'd screamed at the teacher, threatened to sue on the first day, tried to get her fired immediately, showed up drunk at her house, that would be a warpath. What he actually did was follow the proper channels, document everything, and escalate appropriately when those channels failed. That's called being a responsible parent. Commenter u/like round earth theory said, unless OP said fire her or I sue walk, then it's not something they pressured for. The warpath would be explicitly trying to get her fired even after she stopped. Exactly. Our writer never demanded she be fired. He just wanted the behavior to stop. The administration made the decision to terminate her based on her repeated violations and dishonesty. That's not his fault. Also, can we acknowledge the wife's comment about him pulling a me? What does that mean? Is our writer known for standing up for himself, for not letting things slide, for being persistent when he's right? Because honestly, those sound like good qualities. Why is that being framed as a negative? I'm getting the vibe that our writer might be the kind of person who doesn't let things go when they're not right. And his wife might be more of a keep the peace person. Both approaches have their place, but when it comes to someone repeatedly lying about what they're teaching your kid, keep the peace is not the right approach. The comments also had some wild tangents about VeggieTales itself that I have to share because they're hilarious. Multiple people started quoting this like full lyrics. Oh, where's my hairbrush? Got a whole thread. Someone quoted Barbara Manatee, which is a manatee romance soap opera parody. I cannot make this up. People were reminiscing about the pirate song, the cheeseburger song, the water buffalo song. Commenter U Clues Lost Help started, open quote, everybody's got a water buffalo. Yours is fast, but mine is slow. Close quote. And someone else continued, open quote, oh, where'd we get them? I don't know, but everybody's got a water buffalo. Close quote. And then there's this incredible exchange where someone tried to keep the song going with, open quote, everybody's got a baby kangaroo, yours is pink, but mine is blue, close quote. And another commenter just screamed, open quote, close quote. For context, in the actual episode, someone tries to add a verse about baby kangaroos and gets cut off by someone yelling that you can't say everybody has a water buffalo when everybody does not have a water buffalo. It's absurdist humor and honestly kind of funny, even if you're not religious. The sheer number of people who could quote these songs from memory, many of whom are no longer religious or never were, shows how effective this show was at getting stuck in people's heads. That's exactly why this teacher was so determined to show it. It's catchy, it's memorable, and it gets religious messages into kids' brains in a way that sticks. There was also a fascinating discussion about whether VeggieTales is even theologically sound. Commenter U Tyka Bray had thoughts about the hairbrush episode. Open quote, it doesn't matter that Larry didn't have hair and some peach did. Larry owned a hairbrush. If he found it or was given it or bought it, it was his, and no one had the right to take it away from him because they thought he didn't need it. Close quote. They went on to point out the irony of VeggieTales promoting a message that could be seen as socialist. Give your belongings to someone who needs them more, when the demographic that typically watches VeggieTales is generally anti-socialist. That's actually a really interesting point about how religious messages can sometimes contradict the political ideology of the people sharing them. Another commenter mentioned that their uncle, who is a preacher, wouldn't let his grandkids watch certain VeggieTales episodes because he had issues with the doctrine. Someone else asked which episodes, saying, open quote, the idea of veggie heretics is pretty hilarious to me, close quote. And honestly, same. The idea that there are theologically problematic vegetables is peak internet discourse. Commenter Napoleon 7X made a great point about how VeggieTales changed over time. Open quote, early on, VeggieTales were huge. There were a ton of kids who absolutely loved them, even 100% non-Christian kids. They were more about just being a good person in general, and there were some Bible tales, but they were mostly Old Testament stuff and not pushy about it all. But somewhere in the early to mid 2000s, they seem to have gone off the deep end and became extremely Christian, uncomfortably Christian themed, and became pushy. Close quote. So, depending on which episodes this teacher was showing, the content could range from basically just moral lessons with vegetable characters to pretty intense evangelical messaging. We don't know which episodes the kids were watching, which is part of the problem. The teacher was making those decisions without parental input or consent. Now I want to address something that several commenters brought up. The fact that the daycare seems to use TV as a babysitter pretty regularly, which is its own problem. Multiple people were like, open quote, why are they watching any screen time at daycare? Close quote. That's actually a really good point. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no more than 1 hour of screen time per day for kids 2 to 5 years old. If they're watching something during the day at daycare, that doesn't leave much room for anything at home. And honestly, what are you paying daycare for if they're just plopping kids in front of a TV? You could do that at home for free. Commenter u/Alex3OMG shared a story about their kids' preschool showing a movie during nap time and in the afternoons, which added up to way more than the recommended amount. They complained, thought it was handled, then caught them still doing it, and the teacher got fired. Sound familiar? This seems to be a recurring issue where daycare providers use screen time as an easy way to keep kids quiet and occupied, even when it's against policy or parental wishes. That's lazy childcare at best and potentially harmful at worst, especially for young kids whose brains are still developing. So our writer has two issues here. One, the content of what's being shown, religious programming without consent. Two, the amount of screen time happening. Both are legitimate concerns. Let's also talk about the administration's response to all this. Initially, they brushed off the complaints. They suggested the kid was confused. They only took action when our writer literally caught them red-handed with photographic evidence. That's not a daycare that takes parent concerns seriously. That's a daycare in CYA mode. And even after the teacher was caught and supposedly dealt with, she still brought the videos back. Either the administration wasn't actually checking to make sure their directives were being followed, or they knew and didn't care until parents started organizing. Neither option is acceptable. Commenter u/Pixie Nightingale said, open quote, I don't know, I'm starting to think the daycare administration knew, close quote. I think they're right. The receptionist trying to stop our writer from going in, the multiple assurances that it wasn't happening when it clearly was, the suggestion that the kid was confused, all of that points to either willful ignorance or active cover-up. And that makes sense when you think about it from the administration's perspective. Daycare workers are hard to find and keep. They're underpaid and overworked. If you've got a teacher who's been there a while, who the kids like, who shows up reliably, you might be inclined to overlook some things. You might tell yourself it's not a big deal. You might hint to parents that their kid is mistaken rather than admit your employee is violating policy. But eventually, when parents start organizing and you're facing the possibility of multiple families pulling their kids, you have to do something. So they sacrifice the teacher to save face. She became the scapegoat for a systemic problem, which is not to say she didn't deserve to be fired. She absolutely did. But I'd be very surprised if the administration wasn't aware this was happening and actively covering for her until it became impossible to ignore. This raises serious questions about whether our writer should even keep his kid at this daycare. If the administration will lie to parents and cover for employees who violate policy, what else are they lying about? How can you trust them with your child's safety and well-being? Commenter U/MCD19, who is a former ECE director, laid it out perfectly. Open quote, absolutely no religious shows should be viewed unless it's a church/religious daycare. When the director said no, it should have been no, and she should have put a stop to it. The lying is unacceptable, and I would pull my kid for that alone. Receptionists should have not tried to stop you. All daycares should have an open door policy for parents. Full stop. Pull your kid. Close quote. That's from someone who worked in this field and knows how it should operate. The fact that multiple red flags went up here suggests this isn't a well-run facility, regardless of whether the specific VeggieTales issue is resolved. Now let's get to the question everyone's debating. Is our writer the asshole? Hell no. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.001%. Let's break down what actually happened here. Our writer noticed his child mentioned watching something at daycare, asked the teacher about it directly, stated his preference clearly, followed up when the issue wasn't resolved, escalated through proper channels, documented evidence of the problem, got other affected parents involved, persisted until the issue was actually resolved. The teacher showed content she knew wasn't approved, lied to parents when directly asked, ignored explicit requests from parents, lied to administration, violated direct orders from supervisors, continued the behavior after being caught, brought banned materials back repeatedly, prioritized her personal agenda over her job duties. The administration failed to properly supervise what was being shown, made excuses for the teacher's behavior, suggested a child was lying rather than investigate, only took action when presented with undeniable proof, allowed the behavior to continue even after promising it would stop, failed to ensure their policies were being followed. The math is definitely mathing here, and it's not looking good for anyone except our writer. He didn't get anyone fired. He didn't make unreasonable demands. He didn't go nuclear from the start. He followed every proper channel, gave multiple opportunities for the issue to be resolved, and only escalated when nothing else worked. That's not being an asshole. That's being a responsible parent. The teacher got herself fired by repeatedly violating policy and lying to parents and supervisors. If you can't follow basic workplace rules, if you can't be honest with the people whose children you're caring for, you shouldn't be in that profession. Period. End of story. The people who feel bad for the teacher or think our writer went too far are missing the point entirely. This isn't about one person losing their job. This is about a pattern of dishonesty and boundary violations in a setting where children's safety and well-being depend on trust. If a teacher will lie about showing VeggieTales, what else will they lie about? If they'll violate a simple, straightforward policy repeatedly, what other policies are they violating? If they think their judgment is more important than parents' explicit instructions, what other decisions are they making without parental consent? These aren't abstract questions. These are real concerns about whether you can trust someone with your child. And to the people saying they're just animated vegetables, no, they're not just anything. They're religious content being shown to young children without parental knowledge or consent by someone who repeatedly lied about it. The content being harmless doesn't make the lying okay. The content being wholesome doesn't make the boundary violations acceptable. Parents have the right to control their children's exposure to religious content. Full stop. That's not negotiable. It doesn't matter if it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, paganism, or the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. If parents don't want their kids exposed to religious teachings at daycare, that should be respected. And honestly, the fact that this even needs to be said shows how normalized Christian content is in American culture. Nobody would be defending a teacher who kept showing Islamic videos after being told to stop. Nobody would be saying, but they're just harmless Muslim cartoons. Um, the outrage would be immediate and intense. The only reason there's any debate here is because Christianity is so dominant that people don't even see it as religious indoctrination. It's just normal. It's just harmless vegetables. But it's not harmless to force your religion on other people's children, and it's definitely not harmless to lie about it repeatedly. Commenter u/automatic sky 3928 summed it up perfectly. Open quote, the only reason I can think of where a daycare worker or educator would insist on showing that in a professional space ran secretly, despite parents' complaints and orders from supervisors not to, is if it was part of a larger agenda to evangelize children. And that is worthy of being fired for. Close quote. Yes, the persistence, the secrecy, the lying, it all points to someone who believed their mission to spread their religion was more important than anything else. More important than parents' rights, more important than workplace rules, more important than honesty, more important than her actual job responsibilities. That level of commitment to undermining parents and violating policy is absolutely worthy of termination. If she wanted to evangelize through VeggieTales, she should have gotten a job at a Christian daycare where that's part of the actual mission. Sneaking it into a secular environment against explicit instructions is inappropriate at best and potentially harmful at worst. So, my final verdict, not the asshole. Not even close. Not even in the same zip code as asshole territory. Our writer did everything right. He communicated clearly, followed proper channels, escalated appropriately, got other parents involved when needed, and persisted until the issue was resolved. That's not being on the warpath. That's being an engaged, protective parent who expects basic honesty from the people caring for his child. The teacher made her choice. She chose her personal agenda over her professional responsibilities. She chose lying over honesty. She chose defiance over compliance. She chose her own judgment over parents' explicit wishes. And she faced the natural consequences of those choices. Play stupid games with cartoon vegetables, win stupid prizes like unemployment. To anyone giving our writer grief about this, ask yourself if you'd be okay with a teacher repeatedly lying to you about what they're teaching your kid. Ask yourself if you'd be fine with someone prioritizing their personal beliefs over your parental rights. Ask yourself if you'd trust someone who showed such blatant disregard for rules and honesty to care for your child. If the answer to any of those questions is no, then you need to accept that this teacher deserved to be fired and our writer did nothing wrong by holding the daycare accountable. And to our writer, you did good, my friend. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for expecting basic honesty and respect for your parental rights. Your kid is lucky to have a parent who pays attention and advocates for them. Keep doing what you're doing. Also, might want to look into a new daycare though, because this one has shown some major red flags that go way beyond just the VeggieTales issue. Just saying. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for telling our roommate she might need to move out if she keeps complaining about hearing us at night? All right, folks, buckle up because we're about to dive into what is quite possibly one of the most audacious displays of entitlement I've seen in a while. We're talking about a woman who's living rent-free in someone else's house. And I mean completely rent-free. Like not paying utilities, not paying for groceries, getting access to a pool and sauna, and she has the absolute nerve to complain about hearing her hosts having sex in their own bedroom, in their own house that they pay for. Ugh, cannot make this stuff up. So our writer and her boyfriend let a friend of his, someone he's known since childhood, stay at their place because housing is expensive and her university is nearby. Already, they're being incredibly generous. The friend stays there 5 days a week and goes home on weekends, which honestly sounds like a pretty sweet setup if you ask me. But wait, it gets better. They don't charge her rent. They pay for utilities. They pay for groceries while she's there. She has her own bathroom and full access to basically everything: the kitchen, the pool, the sauna. Did I mention they have a sauna? Because they have a sauna, and this woman gets to use it for free. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. Free. Housing, free. Utilities, free. Food, free. Sauna. And what does this woman do with all this generosity? She complains. multiple times about hearing our writer and her boyfriend being intimate at night. Now, before anyone comes at me with, well, maybe they're really loud, her bedroom isn't even next to theirs. Between our writer's bedroom and the friend's space is a whole computer/working room and the friend's bathroom. So there's legit separation. It's not like they're sharing a wall and the headboard is banging against it at 2 a.m. every night. A few months ago, the friend told them she could hear them being intimate at night and it made her uncomfortable. Okay, fair enough. Nobody wants to hear their friends going at it. Our writer and her boyfriend said they'd try to be quieter when she's around. Reasonable response, right? But then she brought it up multiple times. Like, how many times do you need to complain about the same thing when the people have already said they'd work on it? At what point does it become less about the actual noise and more about something else? Recently, this friend asked if she could switch rooms. The only rooms they could realistically swap would be the one our writer's 7-year-old sister uses when she sleeps over, or our writer's hobby room. All the other rooms are already set up permanently. So let me get this straight. This woman wants a young child displaced from her room, or wants our writer to give up her hobby space because she's uncomfortable hearing sex sounds from 3 rooms away? The math ain't mathing here, bestie. Our writer and her boyfriend don't want to rearrange their entire home for this, especially since they're doing this friend a massive favor by letting her live there for free. And honestly, they shouldn't have to. It's their house. They're not running a hotel where the guest gets to dictate the floor plan. After the latest complaint, our writer told the friend calmly but firmly that they've adjusted as much as they think is fair. And if this is going to keep being an issue, maybe this living situation just isn't a good fit and the friend might need to find another place to stay. The friend thinks our writer is being unfair. I'm sorry. What? Unfair? Unfair? The only thing that's unfair here is this friend's absolutely wild sense of entitlement. Let's break down what's actually happening here because I feel like we need to really examine the sheer audacity of this situation. Our writer is providing free housing, paying all utilities, buying all groceries, giving access to luxury amenities, pool and sauna people, already trying to be quieter during intimate moments, being patient with repeated complaints about the same issue. The friend is paying absolutely nothing, contributing absolutely nothing, complaining repeatedly, making demands about room arrangements, calling our writer unfair when told she might need to leave. The entitlement is staggering. Like, I'm genuinely impressed by the sheer nerve of it all. Commenter U Snoo Tomatoes 8935 absolutely nailed it with, do I get this right? She gets free housing and food? I mean, I get that it's awkward, uncomfortable hearing people have sex, but if I get to stay in a house in my own room with my own bathroom, a sauna, a pool for absolutely free, I just buy noise canceling headphones and shut up. Exactly. This is not complicated. There are so many simple solutions here that don't involve displacing a child or rearranging an entire house. Earplugs cost like $5 for a pack. Noise canceling headphones, bit more expensive, but much cheaper than rent. A white noise machine or fan, playing music in her room, literally just dealing with it because free housing. But instead, this friend chose the nuclear option of repeatedly complaining and then asking to switch rooms. That's not normal behavior. That's either extreme entitlement or something else is going on here. And oh boy, did the Reddit detectives pick up on that something else. Multiple commenters immediately clocked what might really be happening here. Commenter U/Quellish said, she's upset because the wrong lady is with his lifelong friend and she has to hear it. Commenter U/Rarefind of the Mind went even further. Someone who's interested in OP's partner, that's who. And you know what? They might be onto something. Because when you really think about it, who moves in with an established couple without expecting to occasionally hear sex? It's not like our writer and her boyfriend are doing it in the living room or anything. They're in their bedroom with their door closed with multiple rooms between them and the friend. A normal person would, 1, maybe mention it once if it was really bothering them. 2, get some earplugs or headphones. 3, move the hell on with their life because free housing, French fried. But this friend has complained multiple times and is now trying to get rooms rearranged. That's not normal. I'm uncomfortable with noise behavior. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of you two having sex behavior. And guess what makes someone uncomfortable with the idea of a couple having sex? Wanting to be with one of the people in that couple. Our writer even confirmed in the comments that she's had suspicions about this. When asked about the friend's possible feelings, she said, "Well, it's not too weird to assume something like this. I've thought about it too. It would be weird because they've known each other for so long, but on the other hand, it also explains some of her behavior." And then she dropped this bomb. "Well, maybe I'm overthinking now, but she sometimes compares herself with me and she feels a bit distant toward me at times. But I get along with her very well when she's not complaining about this, and she doesn't seem like the type of girl who would do this." Oh, honey, that's not overthinking. That's your gut telling you something is off. Let's connect the dots here. Friend of the boyfriend since childhood, compares herself to our writer, acts distant toward our writer at times, is really bothered by them having sex, keeps bringing it up even after they said they'd be quieter, wants to switch rooms, maybe to be closer to hear them better or to create more drama. Yeah, this isn't about noise. This is about jealousy. Commenter, you Jess loves you for Ever, put it perfectly. I think it hurts her heart to hear OP and OP's boyfriend having sex. It seems like she maybe has a little crush, since I can't think of anything else that would make this behavior make any sense. Because here's the thing, if it was just about noise, she would have accepted the first "we'll try to be quieter" and either dealt with it or quietly moved out. But she didn't. She kept pushing, kept complaining, kept trying to make it a bigger issue. And then there's the family dynamics. Our writer revealed in the comments that the friend's parents are good friends with her boyfriend's parents, so he doesn't want to mess that up. But he is on our writer's side and thinks it's getting ridiculous. So we've got a 25-year-old guy who owns a house with a pool and sauna, so clearly doing well. His 23-year-old childhood friend who's living there rent-free. His 22-year-old girlfriend, our writer, who's been living with him for almost 3 years. The friend and has been staying there for 8 months. 8 months. 8 months. This isn't a staying with a friend for a few weeks while I figure things out situation. This is a long-term living arrangement where she's paying nothing. Commenter u/otherwise text fee 772 shared their own experience. Right. One of my friends let me use a spare bedroom in his house, full bathroom and walk-in, closest that I easily could have parked my Toyota Highlander in. They aren't rich, but easily the nicest house I've ever been in, rich. I was only there like 2 or 3 nights a week, paid $300 a month, and never ate his food, except his mom literally packed me lunch for work. She wouldn't stop. I tried to get her to several times, and any of them could have had a blood orgy in the living room to death metal at house shaking decibels, and I wouldn't have said a goddamn word about it. A blood orgy to death metal. And they wouldn't have complained because they understood they were getting an incredible deal and it's not their house. That's the level of gratitude and perspective this friend should have. But instead, she's out here acting like she pays rent and has a say in how the homeowners live their lives. Multiple commenters pointed out the obvious solution: noise canceling headphones, earplugs, a white noise machine, a fan, literally anything except complaining to the people who are housing and feeding you for free. Commenter you travelbug87 said, "Right. I mean, other people having sex never bothers me that much anyway. It can be hot to listen to. Lol, I suppose because it's a friend, it might be weird, but she can easily wear earplugs. This girl wins Most Entitled Award of 2026. And honestly, facts. In what economy do you get free housing, free utilities, free food, and luxury amenities, and you're still out here complaining? Make it make sense." There's also the super creepy possibility that commenter you/lady mystery brought up. If she can hear you through 3 rooms and a closed door, she's standing at your door and listening. You, NTA, and boot her out. Oh God, I didn't even think about that, but now I can't unthink it. What if she is purposely listening? What if she's like actively going near their door to hear them? That would explain why she can supposedly hear them so clearly when there are 3 rooms between them. That's not just entitled, that's creepy. And if that's what's happening, this friend needs to go immediately. Now let's talk about the boyfriend's response, because our writer mentioned that the friend's parents are good friends with his parents. So he's trying to keep the peace. But honestly, at what point does keeping family friends happy become less important than your girlfriend being comfortable in her own home? Because right now, his childhood friend is making his girlfriend uncomfortable in the house they share together. She's repeatedly complaining about their sex life. She's making demands about room arrangements. She's comparing herself to his girlfriend. She's acting distant toward his girlfriend. If I were the boyfriend, those would be some major red flags that this living situation needs to end ASAP. Not just for our writer's comfort, but to protect their relationship. Because here's what's going to happen if this continues. The friend is going to keep pushing boundaries, keep complaining, keep trying to insert herself between them. Eventually, it's going to cause serious problems in the relationship. Our writer is going to start resenting her boyfriend for not standing up to his friend. The boyfriend is going to feel caught between his girlfriend and his family's expectations. And the friend, she's going to keep playing victim while actively sabotaging their relationship. This is a recipe for disaster. The smart move: give the friend notice, 30 days is standard, and tell her she needs to find other accommodations. Be kind about it, be firm, but get her out before the situation explodes. Several commenters suggested this exact approach. Commenter Yus Deshi Mimi said, recently, she asked if she could switch rooms, and the answer is yes. She should find a room outside your house and switch to it. Just let her go if she is such a pain in the ass. Perfect response. Oh, you want to switch rooms? Great. Here's a list of available apartments in the area. Good luck. Because at the end of the day, this friend is a guest, not a roommate, not a tenant, a guest. And guests don't get to make demands. Guests don't get to dictate how the homeowners live. Guests don't get to repeatedly complain about the same thing after being told it's being addressed. And you know what? Even if she was paying rent, she still wouldn't have the right to tell a couple not to have sex in their own bedroom. That's part of living with other adults. Sometimes you're going to hear things you'd rather not hear. You put on some headphones, turn on a fan, and move on with your life like a grown-up. But this friend isn't acting like a grown-up. She's acting like an entitled child who thinks the world should revolve around her comfort, even when she's literally being given thousands of dollars worth of free housing and amenities every month. Let's do some quick math, shall we? Average rent in most cities for a room in a shared house, $800 to $1,500 per month. Utilities, $100 to $200 a month. Groceries for one person, $300 to $400 a month. So conservatively, this friend is getting about $1,200 to $2,000 worth of value every month for free. Over 8 months, that's $9,600 to $16,800 worth of free living expenses. And she's complaining about occasional noise. The entitlement is absolutely wild. Commenter Use Manic Selkie Dream Girl summed it up perfectly. NTA, my flabbers are pretty gasted at the audacity of this woman. She's not your roommate, she's your guest. Genuinely baffled at how someone in her position thinks she can make demands of you and accuses you of being unfair when you've already been accommodating. It's your home you are letting her stay in out of the kindness of your heart. Like, how do people like her survive out in the world? Flabbers are gasted. I'm stealing that phrase because it's perfect for this situation. How do people like this survive in the world? What happens when she has to get her own place and actually pay rent? Is she going to call her landlord every time her neighbors make noise? Is she going to demand they rearrange the building for her comfort? No, because in the real world, you don't get to make those demands. But she's been in this cushy free situation for so long that she's lost all perspective on how incredibly lucky she is. Now, I want to address something our writer mentioned. They have a 7-year-old sister who sometimes sleeps over. That is a valid concern when it comes to noise. Kids shouldn't be hearing adults having sex. But our writer clarified in the comments that the sister's room is downstairs, and when she's there, they usually don't even do it. So they're already being responsible about that, which means the only person complaining is the adult woman who's living there for free. an adult woman who should be mature enough to either handle it or find alternative housing. Several commenters brought up the very real possibility that this could escalate, and they're right to be concerned. If this friend is willing to repeatedly complain about something as private as our writer's sex life, what else is she willing to do? Will she start complaining about other things? Will she start making more demands? Will she try to cause problems in the relationship? Will she make a move on the boyfriend? These might sound like dramatic Reddit conspiracy theories, but honestly, the behavior is already weird enough that none of these would be shocking. Commenter u/Shannon shared a wild story that's a cautionary tale. My own experience. Dated my ex from ages 22 to 30. Known him since age 16-ish through my best friend since I have known since we were 3-yo. Age 30, I break up with him. My best friend who I grew up with, her parents raised me, taught me how to drive, took me to family reunions, lied to me to go visit my ex in a different state at my own house that I own. We broke up. I went back to our hometown to visit family, and I own the house and pay the mortgage. He's not interested in her, so nothing happened, but it destroyed my relationship with my best friend and basically 90% of the people I know. So yeah, this stuff does happen. Childhood friends do catch feelings. People do wait for their chance and then make a move. It can destroy relationships and friendships. The fact that our writer is already picking up on weird vibes, the comparing, the distance, the excessive complaints about their sex life, means those instincts are probably right. Women's intuition is a real thing, and it usually exists for a reason. Trust your gut, OP. If something feels off, it probably is. Now let's talk about the comments suggesting our writer should just get louder. Commenter u/affectionate jello 452 said, honestly, OP, be louder. And commenter Wood said, keep boning the shit out of your boyfriend and don't worry about her entitled ass. She needs to leave her sweet free living situation if she can't handle someone else having sex with her crush. While I appreciate the petty energy, because same, I actually think that might make things worse. Not because our writer would be doing anything wrong, but because it would give the friend more ammunition to play victim. The better move is what our writer is already doing, being firm about boundaries, making it clear that if the friend isn't happy, she can leave. Not bending over backwards anymore to accommodate someone who's already getting way more than they deserve. Because here's the thing, our writer and her boyfriend have already been more than accommodating. They let her live there rent-free, pay all her utilities, buy all her groceries, give her access to luxury amenities. Already tried to be quieter, listened to her complaints multiple times, considered her request to switch rooms. That's more than enough accommodation for someone who's paying nothing. At this point, the friend needs to either A, accept the situation and find her own solutions, earplugs, headphones, white noise. B, start paying rent and contributing to household expenses. C, find somewhere else to live. Those are the only three reasonable options here. Keep complaining while contributing nothing and expecting the homeowners to rearrange their entire lives is not an option. Commenter u/psychostick username laid it out perfectly. We don't charge her rent and we pay for utilities and groceries. You can do whatever the fuck you like. She can live with it or she can move. That's the absolute end of it. Period. End of discussion. That's all that needs to be said. Some people in the comments did bring up the valid point that maybe the friend is just really uncomfortable with sex in general. Like maybe she's a prude or has some religious hangups or trauma or something. And okay, that's possible. But you know what? That's her issue to deal with, not our writer's problem to solve. If she has issues around sex, she needs to work on that with a therapist, not expect everyone around her to accommodate her discomfort. And also, if she's that uncomfortable with the idea of living with a couple who might have sex, maybe she shouldn't have moved in with a couple in the first place. Like that seems like pretty basic common sense. Commenter u/paramental made an excellent point. Does she just expect you two to not be intimate at night in your room like a normal healthy couple because she's also there? That's a wild fucking ask. It's not like she's walking in on him banging you over a counter or table. You're behind closed doors and it's your home. Either she's jealous of you or jealous of him because a normal adult would put headphones on for however long it lasts, or white noise, or something. Exactly. This is not a normal reaction to occasionally hearing your housemates having sex. This is either extreme prudishness, extreme entitlement, feelings for one of the people in the couple. None of those are our writer's problem to fix. And honestly, at this point, I don't even care what the friend's reasoning is. The bottom line is, it's not her house, she's not paying rent, she's already been accommodated, she has simple solutions available: earplugs, headphones, etc. She's choosing to make this into a bigger problem than it needs to be. So yeah, she can either deal with it or move out. Those are the options. Let me also address the people who might be thinking, well, maybe our writer and her boyfriend are really loud and it's genuinely disturbing. Our writer clarified that they're maybe not silent, but also not that loud. And given that there are 3 rooms between them, unless they're literally screaming at the top of their lungs, the friend should not be able to hear them clearly. Which brings us back to the possibility that she's either A, actively listening, creepy; B, lying or exaggerating about how much she can hear, manipulative; C, just so bothered by the idea of them having sex that even slight sounds are too much, her problem to fix. None of these scenarios make our writer the asshole. Now, let's talk about what should happen next, because this situation needs to be resolved ASAP before it gets even worse. Our writer needs to have a serious conversation with her boyfriend about setting a timeline for the friend to move out. Not if she keeps complaining, but an actual, you have 30 days to find new accommodations. Because this isn't going to get better, it's only going to get worse. The friend has shown that she doesn't respect boundaries, feels entitled to make demands in someone else's home, won't accept reasonable solutions, keeps pushing even after being told no, might have ulterior motives. Um, those are all major red flags that this person should not be living in their home anymore. And if the boyfriend is worried about the parents' friendship, they can frame it as, friend has been with us for 8 months, which was incredibly generous, but we need our space back as a couple. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. Any rational adult would understand that. If the parents don't understand that, then they're just as entitled as their daughter, and who cares what they think? Commenter u/brilliant dash dash 835 suggested, well, then actually her leaving is the best option to avoid further messy conversations, confrontation, which could lead to a bigger argument and damage the friendships, parents, and BF and her. She finds a better place where she feels comfortable and everyone stays friends. That's actually a really smart approach. Frame it as, we want to help you find a place where you'll be more comfortable, rather than, you're being kicked out. Same result, but sounds nicer and keeps everyone's dignity intact. Though honestly, after 8 months of free housing and then complaining about it, I don't think this friend deserves that level of consideration. But if it helps smooth things over with the families, sure, why not? The important thing is getting her out before she causes serious damage to the relationship or does something even more dramatic. Because right now, she's already making our writer uncomfortable in her own home, causing tension in the relationship, overstepping boundaries, acting entitled and ungrateful. How much worse does it need to get before enough is enough? Commenter u/Jaden Rain asked the perfect question. Why are you letting someone who doesn't pay any bills be a decision maker in your house? Like, you can't smash in your own house because some entitled chick says so? Girl, you and your SO need to grow a backbone. And you know what? They're right. Our writer has been too nice, too accommodating, too patient with someone who frankly doesn't deserve it. It's time to put the foot down and say, this is our house. We've been more than generous. And if you're not happy with the free housing, free food, and free amenities we're providing, you're welcome to find somewhere else to live. End of story. So let's get to the final verdict. Is our writer the asshole? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.0001%. Our writer provided free housing for 8 months, paid all utilities, bought all groceries, gave access to luxury amenities, listened to complaints and tried to accommodate, set reasonable boundaries when requests became unreasonable, Gave the friend fair warning about finding other accommodations if she's not happy. The friend contributed absolutely nothing financially, complained multiple times about the same issue, made unreasonable requests switching rooms, called our writer unfair for setting boundaries, showed extreme entitlement, possibly has ulterior motives. The math is definitely mathing here, and it's not looking good for the friend, not the asshole. Our writer has been incredibly generous, patient, and accommodating. The friend has been entitled, ungrateful, and inappropriate. If anyone's the asshole here, it's the woman who's getting free housing worth potentially tens of thousands of dollars and still finding things to complain about. To everyone saying our writer should feel bad about potentially making this friend move out, nope. This friend made her own bed, literally and figuratively. She had an amazing living situation and chose to ruin it by being ungrateful and making unreasonable demands. Actions have consequences. The consequence of biting the hand that feeds you is that the hand stops feeding you. That's just how life works. Our writer did absolutely nothing wrong. She set a reasonable boundary after being more than patient and accommodating. That's not being an asshole, that's being a normal person with healthy boundaries. And to our writer, please, please get this friend out of your house ASAP. Give her 30 days notice. Be kind but firm. Reclaim your home. You've been more than generous enough. It's time to prioritize your relationship and your own comfort in the space you're literally paying for. And maybe invest in some really good security for when she moves out, because something tells me this isn't going to end quietly. But that's a problem for future you to deal with. For now, just know that you are absolutely 100% not the asshole. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for refusing to give my mom my savings after she found out how much I have? Okay, buckle up, because we're diving into a story that has me absolutely furious on behalf of this 19-year-old college student who just learned a very harsh lesson about why you never, ever let people peek at your bank account. This is some primetime financial manipulation wrapped up in a family helps family guilt trip bow, and I am here for breaking this down. So, our writer is 19 in college, still living at home, and has been grinding at a part time job since she was 16. And here's the kicker, she's actually good with money. Like, she doesn't go out much, doesn't blow cash on expensive stuff, and has managed to save up around $4,000. For a college student working part time, that's genuinely impressive. That takes discipline, planning, and sacrifice. Most 19-year-olds are eating ramen and checking their account balance with one eye closed, hoping it's not negative. But here's where things get spicy. Last week, her mom asked her to log into her banking app to transfer money for groceries because her card wasn't working. Sure, okay, that happens. Cards get declined, chips get damaged, fraud alerts happen. Normal stuff, right? Wrong. While our writer is doing this favor for her mom, dear old mother, Dearest takes a nice long peek at the total savings balance and suddenly goes quiet. Uh-oh. You know nothing good comes after that kind of silence. That's the silence before the storm, the calm before someone asks you for something completely unreasonable. Later that night, mom comes back with her demands. Sorry, I mean her request. She tells our writer that since she's living under her roof, it's selfish to be hoarding money while mom is struggling. Then drops the bomb. She wants $2,000. Half of this kid's savings, just give it to her to help the family. And oh, don't worry, sweetie, you can always earn it back. I'm sorry, what? Let's break down how absolutely wild this is. First of all, the mom works full time. Our writer even says they're not rich, but they're not in crisis either. So this isn't like we're about to be evicted and then I need rent money or we're homeless. This is, I saw you have money and now I want it. And the writer already does contribute. She pays for her own school stuff, her phone bill, and sometimes groceries. She's not sitting around eating bonbons and watching TikToks while mommy pays for everything. She's pulling her weight as a 19-year-old college student reasonably should. But mom saw that $4 balance and suddenly it's you're being selfish and you're acting like a tenant instead of a daughter. Hold up. Let's talk about that line for a second because it's doing some serious mental gymnastics. Mom is the one demanding money. Mom is the one treating this relationship like a financial transaction. Mom is the one who saw a bank balance and immediately calculated how much she could extract from her teenage daughter. But somehow the daughter is the one acting like a tenant. Make it make sense. If anyone's treating this like a landlord-tenant situation, it's the parent demanding half the savings. A loving parent who sees their 19-year-old has managed to save $4 while juggling college and part-time work would say, "Wow, I'm so proud of you for being responsible with money." Not, "Cool, I'll take half of that, thanks." And then mom goes and gets the relatives involved. Now, our writer has family members crawling out of the woodwork saying she should help because family helps family. Oh, we're doing the family helps family guilt trip? Love that for us. You know what's funny about that phrase? It only ever seems to flow in one direction. Family helps family when they need your money. But where's that energy when you need support to finish college without going into debt? Where's that energy when you're trying to build a future for yourself? Commenter Unata18 came in hot with the advice. Open quote, "Do not give her a dime." This is a big lesson you need to learn with family and growing up. You give them money once, they will keep coming back forever. Close quote. And you know what? They're absolutely right. This is exactly how financial abuse starts. You give in once and suddenly you've established a precedent. Now, mom knows you have money and that you'll hand it over when pressured. So, what happens next month when she wants another $500 or $1,000? Where does it end? Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Commenter use/professional ruin 953 dropped some wisdom that everyone needs tattooed on their forearm. Open quote. Second big lesson, don't let people know how much money you have. Never let people know how much money you have. Close quote. Preach. This is exactly why financial privacy exists. Not because you're being shady or secretive, but because the second some people know you have money, they start mentally spending it. They start seeing you as an ATM instead of a person. And can we talk about mom's logic for a second? She said the writer can always earn it back. Okay, cool. By that logic, mom can earn $2 too. She's got a full-time job. If earning it is so easy, why doesn't she earn it herself instead of taking money from her college student daughter who's working part-time? The math ain't mathing, bestie. Let's also address the elephant in the room. $4,000 is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of adulting. Like, at all. Multiple commenters pointed this out. Commenter u/Rick Muffy said, open quote, 4K is barely a 2-month fund for most people who should aim for a 6-month emergency fund. Close quote. Exactly. This isn't, I'm sitting on a pile of gold like a dragon money. This is, I might be able to afford first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit if I need to move out money. This is, I can survive a car repair or medical emergency without going into debt money. This is safety net money. And mom wants to take half of it for what exactly? She never even specified. She just said to help the family, which is code for I saw money and I want it. Commenter used GothMom85 had a beautiful point. Open quote, imagine being this mom and being greedy about the money instead of, say, being proud or glad she's being frugal, has a small head start, a backup. Close quote, right? Like, what kind of parent sees their kid being financially responsible and thinks, how can I benefit from this? Instead of, I'm so proud they're learning good money habits. The answer, a bad one. Now, there's a whole thread of people debating whether our writer should be paying rent or contributing more to the household. And look, I actually think there's a reasonable conversation to be had there. If mom had said, hey, you're 19 now and working, I think it's fair for you to start contributing $200 a month toward household expenses, that would be one thing. But that's not what happened. Mom didn't have a mature conversation about reasonable monthly contributions. She saw a lump sum and demanded half of it. That's not asking for help with expenses. That's just grabbing cash because it's there. Commenter U Funky Natrix made an excellent point. Open quote, everyone telling her to move out. She works part-time and goes to school. OP, it is unfortunate that your mom is this way and that she found out about your savings. My kid works and goes to community college and lives with me, and I'm happy to support them so they can have their best start in life. But it's going to cost you way more than $2,000 to move out. Tread carefully so you can get through college with minimal debt. Eyes on the prize. Close quote. This is the adult perspective we need. Yes, technically our writer could move out, but should she? Is that actually the smart financial move? Probably not. Moving out would eat through that 4K fast. First month, last month, security deposit, furniture, utilities, food, transportation, that adds up quick. The smart move is to stay, save, finish college, and then move out when she's in a better financial position. But that only works if mom stops seeing her like a piggy bank to smash. Several people suggested our writer should immediately open a new bank account at a different bank and transfer most of the money there. Commenter You Dark Chocolate Only literally said, open quote, you need your own individual bank account immediately, close quote. And honestly, they're not wrong. If account was opened when our writer was a minor, there's a good chance mom is on it as a joint account holder, which means mom could legally withdraw that money without permission. Even if she's not on the account, she might know the password since she watched our writer log in. This is genuinely a security issue now. The money needs to be protected because mom has made it clear she feels entitled to it. And oh man, commenter you otherwise chemist 92020 pointed out something I hadn't even thought about. Open quote, and she only asked to use your account to see how much you had. Don't let her do that again. An adult with a card that isn't working calls the bank to find out why. That's a shitty excuse. Close quote. Yo, what if this whole thing was a setup? What if mom's card was working fine and this was just a scheme to peek at the account balance? Because you're right, adults with broken cards call the bank or use a different payment method. They don't ask their teenager to log into their banking app right in front of them. That's actually pretty manipulative if that's what happened. And based on the fact that mom went from zero to give me 2K within hours of seeing that balance, I'm not convinced it wasn't calculated. Now let's talk about the relatives who are piling on with the family helps family nonsense. Commenter U. Shanevis had the perfect response. Open quote. Remind any family telling you that family helps family that if it means that much to them, then they should also be willing to hand over money to help your mother. Close quote. Boom. Roasted. Seriously, if these relatives are so concerned about mom's finances, they can open their own wallets. Why is it the 19-year-old college student's responsibility to fund whatever mom needs money for? These grown adults with established careers and lives can't chip in, but the teenager should hand over half her savings? The hypocrisy is thick. I'm also seeing some people in the comments being like, well, she lives there rent free, so she should contribute. And like, she's 19 and in college. When did we as a society decide that parents are only responsible for their kids until the day they turn 18, and then it's pay up or get out? Commenter U/I am Medusa said it perfectly. Open quote, it's so weird to see the comments saying you should be paying rent and stuff. You're in school. Parents are supposed to lead their children to a good future. My parents were not rich at all, but always told us that we could live at home for free while we were in school. But it seems people think that a parent's job stops at a random age instead of a growth. Close quote. Close quote. Thank you. Being a parent doesn't end at 18. It doesn't end when they go to college. Good parents want their kids to have a strong financial start. They want them to save money and build a foundation for their future. They don't see their college age kids as cash cows. And before anyone comes at me with, but we don't know mom's financial situation, if mom was truly in dire straits, she would have had a conversation about it before seeing the bank account. She would have said, hey, I'm really struggling with bills. Can you help out with a month? Not, I saw you have $4. Give me half. The timing tells you everything you need to know about the motivation. Commenter you, Tufted Mouse Tits pointed out, open quote, the whole reason mom saw it was because she was already asking for money from a teenager who goes to college and works. If mom is that broke, she can go to the food bank or try for SNAP, food stamps. Close quote. Exactly. There are resources for people who are genuinely struggling. Food banks, SNAP benefits, utility assistance programs, community resources. If mom is working full time and still can't afford groceries, that's a bigger systemic problem that $2 from her daughter isn't going to solve long term. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think mom saw money sitting there and thought, I could use that for whatever, without considering that it's not her money. Commenter u/lazy resolve 9747 said, open quote, yay, the mom is a whole monster. Things would have to be really fucking bad for me to try to get money from my own child, and under no circumstance would I try to guilt trip them into giving it to me. Close quote. And that's the thing. There are situations where asking family for financial help is reasonable and necessary. Medical emergency, unexpected job loss, sudden crisis. Sure, families should support each other through that. But that's not what this is. This is, I want money, you have money, give me money, dressed up in guilt trip clothing. Let's talk about what earn it back really means. Mom says our writer can always earn it back, like that makes it okay to take it. But here's the reality. It took 3 years to save $4 while working part-time and going to school. 3 years of discipline and sacrifice. Even if our writer can technically earn another $4, that's years of her life spent resaving money she already saved. That's years of delayed goals, delayed independence, delayed financial security. Money isn't just money. It's time. It's opportunity. It's options. Taking someone's savings isn't just taking paper. It's taking their time, their effort, their future possibilities. And here's what really gets me. If mom takes this $2 now, what happens in 6 months when our writer has saved back up to $3? Is mom going to ask for more? What about when she graduates and gets a better job? Is mom going to expect a cut of every paycheck? This sets a precedent that is very hard to undo. Once you establish yourself as someone who will cave to financial pressure from family, they will keep applying that pressure. It becomes a pattern, a dynamic, an expectation. Commenter u/Queen of NZ nailed it. Open quote, all the people disagreeing with you are forgetting that this is not a rational person. Agreeing to fork over money now is A, opening the door to more demands like this in future, which will never end, and B, gives no guarantee OP's egg donor won't turf her out the next week anyway, or when she next demands money from OP because she can afford it, which will only leave OP in the same scenario but much, much worse off. Close quote. Exactly. This isn't a rational request from a reasonable person. This is financial manipulation, and giving in doesn't guarantee safety or peace. It just shows mom that this tactic works. Multiple commenters shared their own horror stories of giving family members money and never seeing it again, or being kicked out anyway, or having the demands escalate. This is a pattern with financially manipulative family members. Commenter use single serve coffee said, open quote, ah, yes. So she should give up her college fund because her mom can't finance her own expenses? I remember giving my parents money I had saved before. A month later, I was kicked out after they drank 3 bottles of wine and called me ungrateful after I came home from work and threw me out. Since I gave her money, I was saving to move out. All I had was a shitty little car to sleep out of in the middle of winter. Do not give her 1 rat cent. Close quote. Jesus. This is the reality for some people. They give in to the demands, sacrifice their own security, and still end up getting screwed over. Because the problem isn't actually about money, it's about control and entitlement. Now, I want to address something important. There is a middle ground here that some commenters suggested. Several people said our writer should consider starting to pay a reasonable monthly amount for rent/expenses as a compromise. Commenter u/Baroom suggested, open quote, it seems like it's time to negotiate new rules about how you can contribute to the household now that you're becoming an adult. Ask mom the actual cost of running the household. Utility bills, taxes, rent, mortgage. Ask what share would be reasonable and feel fair. Close quote. This is actually solid advice. Having a mature, transparent conversation about monthly contributions is very different from handing over a lump sum. Maybe $200 to $300 a month toward household expenses is reasonable. Maybe buying her own groceries makes sense. Maybe covering her share of utilities is fair. But that needs to be a negotiated agreement, not a guilt trip cash grab. And it should be monthly, not give me half your savings right now. The difference is monthly rent teaches financial responsibility and adult life skills. A lump sum demand just drains savings and teaches nothing except people will take advantage of you if you let them. Several commenters also warned that if our writer does give the money, she should get it in writing as a loan with repayment terms if she expects to ever see it again. But honestly, most people said, don't expect to see it again, period. Commenter u slash alarming score cellist 751 said, open quote, not only that, but if you ever think you're going to be repaid, think again. Either you won't get the money or you'll have to bug the person like crazy to get it back. Close quote. And they're probably right. Loans to family members often become gifts, whether you intended that or not. Because how do you take your own mother to small claims court? How do you demand repayment without blowing up the whole relationship? You can't really. So the money is just gone. There's also the whole issue of what mom would even use the money for. She never specified, just to help the family, which is vague as hell. Help with what? Rent, utilities, credit card debt, shopping? We literally don't know. And that vagueness is intentional because if mom said, I need $2 to pay off my credit cards from shopping sprees, our writer would rightfully say, hell no. So instead, it's just the family needs it, which sounds noble and necessary, but actually means nothing. I'm also really bothered by mom involving the extended family. That's manipulation 101. When you can't convince someone directly, you get flying monkeys to apply pressure from all sides. Now our writer has to deal with relatives texting her, probably posting vague Facebook statuses about ungrateful children, maybe showing up at family events with awkward tension. That's not asking for help. That's orchestrating a guilt campaign. Commenter U1Deep87 had the perfect response to those relatives. Open quote. Tell your extended family since something to say they can also contribute to your family household since family helps family. Most will shut up. Close quote. Yup. Funny how people are so generous with other people's money, but when you ask them to contribute themselves, suddenly they're busy. If helping family is so important, why aren't they opening their wallets? Because they know this is unreasonable. They just don't care because it's not their money being demanded. Let's also talk about the part where mom said our writer is acting like a tenant instead of a daughter. This is emotional manipulation at its finest. She's trying to make our writer feel guilty for having boundaries around her own money. But you know what? Having financial boundaries doesn't make you a bad daughter. It makes you a responsible adult. And if mom can't handle her adult daughter having her own savings account without demanding access to it, that's a mom problem, not a daughter problem. Commenter u slash thrusty8 flipped the script perfectly. Open quote. By demanding it, she is the one treating you like a tenant, not like a daughter. She is showing you that her present greed outweighs your future. Close quote. Boom, boom. Mom is the one making this transactional. Mom is the one putting money before relationship. Mom is the one treating this like a business arrangement instead of a parent-child bond. A loving parent sees their kid's savings and feels proud. A greedy landlord sees it and calculates what they can extract. Mom is being the latter while accusing our writer of being the former. The projection is real. Now let's address some practical concerns. Several people pointed out that $4 isn't enough to move out on, especially while in school. And they're right. But that doesn't mean our writer should just hand it over. If anything, this situation makes it more important to protect that money because things might get worse before they get better. If mom starts charging actual rent or making life uncomfortable at home, that $4 might be the only thing standing between our writer and homelessness. Commenter you PM me your repo broke down the math. Open quote. $4,000 can get you a week of a shitty hotel, enough gas and cheap food to last you while you hit Facebook Market for rooms to rent and drive all over Hell's Half Acre to meet the landlords and see the rooms, a security deposit and month of rent on a cheap $600 to $800 Sir Mo room in the outskirts of a major city, and still have plenty left over for emergencies, incidentals, and the next month or more of rent. Close quote. So yes, $4 won't set you up in luxury, but it can keep you from being homeless in an emergency. It's literally the difference between having options and having none. Why would our writer give that security away just because mom decided she wants it? There's also the reality that college students are vulnerable. They're in a transitional phase of life. They're building toward their future, but not quite stable yet. They need more financial cushion, not less, because they have fewer safety nets than established adults. Mom, as an adult with a full-time job, has more options than her 19-year-old part-time working student daughter. If mom needs money, she can pick up overtime, get a side gig, apply for assistance, or adjust her budget. Our writer has fewer options while in school. Taking money from the person with less security to give to the person with more is backwards as hell. Several commenters suggested our writer should look into financial aid, campus housing, or other resources if she ends up needing to leave. Commenter u slash on my last spoon pointed out, open quote, if this is a public university in the US, they have resources to help students who suddenly become homeless. Close quote. This is true. Colleges often have emergency housing funds, financial aid adjustments for students who lose parental support, work-study programs, and counseling services. If worst comes to worst, there are resources. But let's be real, our writer shouldn't have to access emergency homelessness resources because her mom got greedy about her savings. That's insane. Commenter u slash grump curmudgeon, who teaches at a state university, pushed back on the just move out advice. Open quote, in 3 years, OP has saved 4Ks. She absolutely does not have the resources to thrive on her own, yet while continuing to go to school. She would have to take on massive debt, which defeats the purpose of hanging on to her 4K, drop back to part-time, and deal without the many intangible benefits of a relatively stable home. Close quote. This is the voice of experience speaking. Yes, our writer could move out, but at what cost? Dropping out of school, taking on massive student loan debt, working full-time and sacrificing her education? Those aren't reasonable costs just because mom wants cash. The goal should be protect the savings, finish college, then move out in a stable way, not burn everything down because of mom's unreasonable demand. Now, I want to circle back to something important. We don't actually know if mom is in genuine financial crisis or if she just wants the money. The writer says they're not rich, but not in crisis either, and that mom works full time. But we don't know her debt situation, medical costs, or other financial obligations. Commenter u slash OK Professional 4499 asks some good questions. Open quote, do you know if your mom has saving? Is she living paycheck to paycheck? Struggling? Close quote. These are fair questions. If mom is genuinely struggling, that context matters. But here's the thing. If she is struggling, she should have said that. She should have had an honest conversation about the family's financial situation and worked out a plan together. Instead, she saw the bank balance and went straight to, give me $2. That's not how you handle genuine financial crisis of family. That's how you grab money because you saw it. Commenter you killer Dr. GN made a valid point. Open quote. The why she has no money in the account is the big question. Is her mom working a minimum wage job and struggling to keep up with inflation, or is she blowing her money on dumb bullshit? As OP hasn't mentioned dad in this post, I'm wondering if OP is unaware that the family is about to starve and be homeless. Close quote. True. We're only getting one side. Maybe mom is hiding how bad things are financially to protect our writer. Maybe there's a crisis we don't know about. But even if that's true, the solution isn't take half your daughter's savings without full explanation. The solution is sit down as a family and honestly discuss the financial situation and work out a plan together. The fact that mom didn't do that suggests this isn't actually about crisis. It's about wanting money that she saw sitting there. Multiple people also pointed out that if mom is in financial crisis, $2 is a band-aid, not a solution. If things are really that bad, she needs a fundamental change, budget adjustment, better job, assistance programs, debt counseling, not a one-time cash infusion from her teenager. So, let's get to the verdict. Is our asshole for refusing to give her mom half her savings? Hell no. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.001%. Our writer has been working and saving responsibly since age 16, pays for her own school expenses, phone bill, and sometimes groceries, is a full-time college student trying to build a future, saved money for emergencies and moving out eventually, only has $4 total, which is not a huge amount, was ambushed with this demand after mom snooped her bank balance. Mom works full-time, more earning potential than part-time student, didn't explain what the money is actually needed for, demanded half the savings, not a reasonable monthly contribution, used guilt trips and emotional manipulation, involved extended family to apply pressure, saw her daughter's savings and immediately wanted it. The math is mathing, and it ain't looking good for mom. Here's the reality: parents are supposed to help their kids build financial security, not tear it down. They're supposed to be proud when their kids save money, not see them as piggy banks to raid. If mom genuinely needs help with household expenses, there's a mature way to handle that. Hey, you're working now, and I think it's fair to start contributing to household expenses. How about $200 a month? That's reasonable. That's teaching adult responsibility. But I saw you have $4, give me $2 right now is not reasonable. That's just greed dressed up in family obligation clothing, not the asshole. Not even close. Our writer earned that money. It's hers. She has plans for it: emergencies, moving out eventually, financial security. She's already contributing to the household in reasonable ways. And most importantly, she's a 19-year-old college student trying to build a future, not a cash machine for her mother to use whenever she feels like it. Mom can be upset all she wants. The relatives can pile on with their family helps family nonsense. But at the end of the day, our writer has the right to protect her own financial security, especially when the person asking for money has more earning potential than she does. To everyone saying, but she lives there rent free, she's 19 and in college. When did we decide that parents are only obligated to support their kids until 11:59 p.m. on their 18th birthday, and then it's pay up or get out? That's some dystopian nonsense. Good parents want their kids to save money during college. They want them to have a strong financial start to adulthood. They don't see them as income sources. And to the relatives saying, family helps family, cool. You help then. Put your money where your mouth is. If it's so important, why aren't you cutting mom a check? Oh, right, because it's easy to be generous with other people's money. My advice to our writer: one, do not give mom that money. Not 2K, not $1, not a dime unless you decide to. Two, open a new bank account at a different bank immediately. Transfer most of that money where mom can't see it or access it. Keep maybe $500 in the old account if you need to show her something. Three, change all your passwords. Bank account, email, everything. Mom might have seen your password when you logged in. Four, be prepared for fallout. Mom might get mad. She might try to charge you rent. She might make living at home uncomfortable. Have a backup plan ready. Five, look into campus resources, financial aid, emergency housing funds, work-study programs. Know your options in case you need to leave. Six, set boundaries. If mom wants to have a mature conversation about you contributing a reasonable monthly amount to expenses, that's fine, but stand firm against lump sum demands. Seven, don't let guilt control you. You're not a bad daughter for having financial boundaries. You're a responsible adult protecting your future. Eight, keep saving. This experience shows you exactly why that emergency fund matters. You worked 3 years for that money. You sacrificed, you saved, you planned. That's your money for your future. Don't let anyone guilt you into giving it up, not even family. Especially not family who sees you as a wallet instead of a person they're supposed to support and protect. Not the asshole, and don't let anyone tell you different. Stay strong, protect your money, and remember, parents who genuinely love and support their kids don't try to raid their college-age children's savings accounts. They just don't.